day 90, what? 91. Day 91 of 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself. And y'all, I'm gonna be preaching. I don't know if I'm good at it or not, but it feels good. So today is day 91 of 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself. In case you're new on the journey, I have been sharing a chapter of this book every single day, and it is called 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself and Change Your Life Forever by Stephen Chandler. And so far I'd say, yeah, it's pretty life-changing. So I totally recommend it. And if you don't like to read, well, guess what? You're in luck. We're friends on Facebook and you get to go back and watch 90 other videos. So lucky you. Let me dive in because this is gold and I can't even wait to share it with you. Hey Mandy, my beautiful buddy. So I'm just gonna dive right in. So exploit your weakness. You know, this is another one of those chapters where I started typing out the notes and then I was like, I can't leave anything out. I can't leave, because something in here is going to resonate with you and I can't omit that. So you're going to get it all and it's not a lot, so don't worry about it. So diving right in. The author starts off by saying, make a list of your strengths and your weaknesses on 2 separate pieces of paper. Place your list of strengths somewhere where you'll see it again. That's all he says. Because it will always pick you up. Oh, isn't that sweet? Now, look at the list of your weaknesses and study them for a while because that's where the gold is. Stay with them until you feel no shame or guilt about them whatsoever. Allow them to become interesting characteristics instead of negative traits. Ask yourself how each characteristic could be useful to you. Maybe there's a lesson in it. Maybe it was meant to have happened. That's not what we usually look at. That's not what we usually ask about our weaknesses, but that's his point. He's saying we don't usually look at our weaknesses and say, what am I supposed to learn here? And that's exactly what it is that he's trying to awaken us to. He goes on to say that when he was a little boy, he remembers watching this amazing tap dancer who was up on stage, and some of you guys might remember him from the Ed Sullivan Show. His name was Peg Leg Bates. It was before my time. I never heard about him, but evidently this was a man who had lost his leg, and he had a dream of becoming a dancer. And he could have sat by and allowed the loss of his leg to be the reason he didn't dance, but instead he allowed it to become the reason he did dance. To Bates, this man, this Peg Leg, what was it, Peg? What is his name? Peg Leg Bates. Say that 3 times really fast. To Bates, losing a leg was not a weakness for long. He made it his strength. The operative word there, you think it's strength, but it's made. He saw his mess and saw it as his message. You know, instead of it being the reason to hold him back, it was the reason to push him forward. Oh, I love that. Obviously, he stood apart from the other dancers in auditions, and it wasn't long before his weakness became his strength. Y'all, I hope this is preaching to you, because this is like reaching deep down in my soul and pulling life right out of me. He gives another example of somebody who used adversity to rise to the cream of the crop. When Arnold Schwarzenegger became a professional actor, he had a weakness, and it was his thick Austrian accent. And it wasn't long, however, before Arnold incorporated his accent into the charm of his action hero personality on the screen. Sorry, I'm trying to abbreviate a bunch of paragraphs here. And a former weakness of this accent became his strength. His accent became an identifying part of his character, and people everywhere started imitating him. You know, what is it? It is what some of his lines were, oh man, all I can think of is, it's not a tumor. Anyhow, there's so many of Arnold's quotes. The author goes on to talk about how one of his own weaknesses, the author of this book, was that early in his life, he had difficulty talking to people. So because he had no confidence in his ability to speak or converse, he got into the habit of writing letters and notes. After a while, he got so practiced with it that he turned it into his strength. His letter writing and thank you notes have created many relationships that could not have been created if he just focused on his shyness as a weakness. He leveraged it to step up into his greatness. And he goes on to talk about how he had 4 children. He has 4 children, but he didn't start to become, he wasn't a father until he was 35. And he thought for the longest time, he saw that being an older parent, older than normal, as a father, he was worried that would it be to his detriment. And he thought that maybe he would have been a better father when he was younger. But then he started thinking back to the time when he was 25 and who he was at the age of 25 and what a difficult time it would have been for him to have been a father then. And soon he realized that his weakness of his age that he perceived was really his greatest strength. And he started leveraging the image of the father in The Little Mermaid with the long flowing hair. He said that he saw it as being wise, and he could be wise for his children. And he now sees his age as a major strength in raising children. And the only weakness was in the way he was looking at it. Think about that final sentence, in the way he's looking at. What are you looking at right now as a detriment, as a weakness, and letting it define you in your limitations instead of propel you to where you need to be going? Ooh, Sherry, that's good. Somebody give that girl a thumbs up. The final paragraph, and then I'm unleashing the life coach on y'all. There isn't anything on our weakness list that can't be a strength if you think about it long enough. Think about all of your weaknesses. Those are totally your strengths. There is no accident that God made those things come across your path. Mandy totally agrees with me on this one. The problem is our weaknesses embarrass us. Anybody relate to that? But embarrassment is not real thinking. That's a myth. That's a story you tell yourself. It's a limiting thought. It's a limiting belief. Once we really start thinking about our weaknesses, they can become strengths, and creative possibilities begin to emerge when we think that way. You guys, I hope this is like bringing somebody to life, because this brought me to life. Now, I wrote some little life coaching stuff here that, y'all are going to have to hear. Hey, Mom. This message was all about turn your mess into your message. For me, okay, so I became a mom and I immediately started to become depressed. I did. And I went to a doctor and the doctor said, let's put her on antidepressants. Didn't even see if I fit the bill to be qualified as clinically depressed or not. I fit the bill as somebody who could benefit from the medication, and I did benefit from it, but it was also to my detriment because I didn't know how to feel anything anymore. I was numb. I didn't have emotion. I didn't cry over beautiful things anymore. And so I wanted to be off of that medication. And I used that turmoil that I went through to have my own awakening and to realize that I put my finger on the pulse of something, and that in that pulse was my destiny, was my purpose. And so that's when I sat down my career of corporate America and I stepped into what I knew was my calling, and that was to help other women who were going through anxiety and depression in motherhood, and to help them realize their potential and to recognize that they weren't necessarily depressed or anxious. These were just feelings that were information to let them know where they needed to focus, because so many of us were raised by moms and taught by moms who didn't deal with a quarter, or they only dealt with a quarter of the things that we deal with. I mean, our moms didn't have to deal with social media and having a full-time career and, having a lot of the things that we have to deal with in today's culture. It's a completely different life now. Not to mention our moms, bless their beautiful souls, did the best they could with what they knew, because they were also a result of the generations before them. So when I became a life coach, I realized that it wasn't that I was depressed or that most of these women that I was coaching were depressed or anxious. It's just that they were uninformed about the truths of motherhood, and they were ill-equipped to handle motherhood. And they didn't realize, that this storybook image that we were being fed on the big screen was a lie. That motherhood isn't that beautiful sometimes, and sometimes it's hard, and sometimes when we step into motherhood, nobody ever told us that there's an identity crisis that happens. You shift from being your single self with your dream sports car, 2-seater convertible that you just traded in on a minivan, and all of a sudden everything starts unraveling and you go downhill because the person you used to be, you're no longer her. And it's all great at the minute that you are, dealing with all of it because you're excited about motherhood, and then motherhood happens and you see the diapers and you see that you haven't showered and you see that all of the things. And it's one of those things where that mess of me going through that made me realize that there's an opportunity here. The second thing that I learned in life is we can allow our failures to define us, or we can allow them to propel us. So for me, in high school, I failed my senior year of high school. Is that even possible? And who would let that happen? I mean, come on. And it wasn't for lack of my mother trying everything she could to try to save me. It was because I fell into a situation where, a law had passed, or a rule or whatever, when I was a freshman, that said that this graduating class, by the time they are a senior, if they fail any one of the 4 pillar academic classes, in the curriculum, if they fail one, they go to summer school. They do not walk in their graduation. And guess who failed English? Moi. Which was fine. At the time it was devastating and it defined me, but it could have been a liability to me had I not gotten up, dusted myself off, entered into college, put myself through college, graduated college, and I refused to let it define me. I did not see my failure of high school as a stop sign. I saw it as information. I saw the choice in that exact moment, and I let it become my reason to fail. Hey, Dana, let it become my reason to fail, or let it be my reason to go to heights that I never even knew were possible for me. I never knew. I mean, none of us ever know where we're going to be, but I never knew at the age of 45 that I would have so many dreams that I never knew were possible. And if they're possible for me, they're possible for you. So here's my final quote. Do you see? Failure to the one who has failed is just failure. But failure to the overcomer is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. So see those problems, see those things that you have gone through, and see those things that you had previously allowed to define you. Those failures are information for you on how to get back up, dust yourself off, and do it all over again, this time the way an overcomer would do it. So there you go. That's day 91. I can't wait to share day 92 with you because it's amazing. Have a good night, everybody.